All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us on today's webinar. If this webinar will be available on our website afterwards, so it is being recorded. So if you do want to come back and watch it later on, or you have to drop off, that is absolutely fine. But as a welcome to our session on SAP Security, why now is the time to act. I'm Andrew Morris. I'm an architect in the application and cybersecurity space for Turnkey Consulting, based here in the UK. And today I'm joined by Ernest from Anapsys. Anapsys, of course, being the market leader in SAP cybersecurity, threat detection, and vulnerability management. Ernest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good day, all. So my name is Ernest Gutierrez. I'm based in Barcelona, as my name is probably Spanish. You all know. And yeah, I'm SAP security consultant on SAP basis for several years. And I'm here to try to explain why to act now against SAP threats.
Excellent, thank you. And in today's session, we're going to cover a number of topics. The main ones for us is what threats are SAP customers facing now? What is the cyber threats we are trying to protect against? Why we need to act now. So is there any evidence of these attacks? What type of attacks are we seeing? Some of the things our organizations can do to prevent it. So what tooling can we install? What changes do we need to make? And an overview of some of the things we have seen more recently. There is a chat and question and answers available. So as we go through this, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the questions and answers box. There will be some time at the end where we will go through all the questions and answers. So type them in there and we'll be able to pick them up towards the end. Apart from that though, Ernest, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So let's start a little bit why Anapsys is here and why Anapsys it's a market leader on the cybersecurity in SAP and business critical applications. So we were founded in 2009, and we have 20% of the top Fortune companies in the world. And as you can see, we have great logos as a customers, and we are happy to have them and to help them on secure their SAP systems. Okay, we have a really unique way of scanning outside SAP. Which helps InfoSec teams which not much knowledge of SAP to understand what is the security posture and the security overall on their SAP. What is the main topics? So today we are talking about what happened last year, right? So 2021, 2022. What's going on the threats in SAP and on business critical applications, right? The ones that you all are using for finance, HR, which handle really critical data and critical business processes, right? So on the left-hand side, we have our SAP domain, right? So we all know there is a digital transformation in the last year, so people moving to the cloud, where the perimeter is evaporating, right? So in the past, we have the companies has the SAP on their data centers, every well protected, or we were thinking everything was well protected and in control, right? There is also much more compliance regulations that we need to follow, GDPR, SOX, UK SOX, or many other ISOs, PCI, any other compliance that we need to follow, and that's time consuming for our technical team and auditors to validate all the systems that we are using, etc. And SAP, as mentioned before, SAP basis myself, I was working in companies which we were doing system copies and migrations every week. 1, 2, 3, 4 migrations every week, which that means for me, SAP, it's not a static environment, it's moving every day. And at the end, cyber attacks. We have seen also from the last year, there is a lot of new attackers and a lot of the attackers are hitting they are going to the crown jewels of the companies, right? So, and SAP, it's usually one of those crown jewels where finance, HR, and private data is there. And on the other side, we have the internal teams, which usually, as we say here, they are all interested on the issues and vulnerabilities, and not in SAP. Also, I would say that it's because SAP is usually in a close group, right? So always it's the IT team, and then we have a separate team, which is the SAP team, and then a lot of the IT security, it's managing all the perimeters and everything, and nobody knows anything about SAP, right? So, and that's real problem from CISOs and for InfoSec teams, right? So here it's the blind spot that we call, right? That there's a big gap on the IT security InfoSec teams, which they don't really see the vulnerabilities or the risk in SAP, because again, SAP, it has been always a black box, right? And black box for the people who is not in SAP, I might say, right? So what about authorizations, right? A lot of people is checking authorizations. SAP have maybe the GRC and everything, but what InfoSec knows about those authorizations? A lot of times they take care of the infrastructure, but not about inside SAP. So we are trying to help those teams to get a better knowledge on authorizations, configurations, interfacing, patching that it's missing, because today you need to patch your systems. We have customers or prospects they have systems that still with releases 4.6. Probably one of you have one of those really old ones, which they have not been patched. So the security there, it's kind of unknown, right? So what an Apsys it's doing, we have our own research lab. So it's the biggest research lab on SAP, and looking for vulnerabilities inside SAP and other business critical applications like Oracle EBS, Salesforce, and SaaS solutions like SuccessFactors for SAP. And you see in this slide, we have been finding most of the CVSS 10 released by SAP were found by us. So 6 out of 7 were really found by our teams, and most probably you have known about them, right? So 2020, most probably last year in this webinar, we were talking about Recon vulnerability, which was found in 2020, and it was affecting most Java systems in SAP, and most of them facing internet, directly facing internet, which was causing really could cause really a big impact in the SAP system and in the business about because it could be full loss of the system. Okay, but this year, last year, 2021, 2021, we are still finding those vulnerabilities, and we are working together with SAP. You can see on the right hand side that we are really doing chats with the CISO from SAP, Richard Puckett, and our CEO, Mariano Núñez, talking about these vulnerabilities and trying to help SAP customers to secure their systems, okay? So ensuring they are patching. SAP is doing a great work patching their system and releasing the patch which is needed, but obviously the customers need to find the time and to patch those systems. Vulnerability in SAP. I was talking before about the blind spot, right? So what is more interesting, all the time before joining on Apsys and before knowing on Apsys, when I was working in Basis, every time I was installing SAP systems, any kind of SAP system, right? Basis, we are doing all these things, right? but the parameters that we were checking mainly was performance parameters, sometimes password, but really it was not a topic for us, right? So it was really the system running and the great performance of the system, and that's it. On the other side, we have the so-called SAP security team, which was basically working on the authorizations and roles in SAP, and that was the thoughts of everyone that SAP was secure, because we have our perimeter secure, we have our firewalls, proxies, etc. And also we have even more secure because we have a SAP security team which was in charge of these authorizations, right? And also because that was enough, because SAP is so complex, right? SAP is complex. Everybody was saying SAP is complex. Nobody in the wild it's knowing SAP. You need to have an SAP to learn about SAP. You cannot exploit SAP. You really need experts to install SAP and to have everything set up. You are spending a lot of money on that. So how come black hacker could attack SAP, which they need this knowledge, they need SAP, they need access to SAP nodes, they need access to everywhere. So nobody was taking care. At the end, you can see on this slide, right? So since 2012 until now, in 10 years, we have been able to find vulnerabilities, and we have been able to alert those vulnerabilities with the different certs in the different countries, right? So the first one, 2016, 2018, but you can see since 2018, every single year, we are releasing the US, the Department of Homeland Security, the CISA, it's alerting of really critical vulnerabilities in SAP, which could compromise all your system, all your data. Even the White House this year, it's potentially increasing the cybersecurity awareness around US and forcing all the companies to have a proper cybersecurity program, right? Now, based on 2021, 2022, that's what we are here today. Why now, right? So 2021, we published, I think it was just about 1 year ago, we published a threat intel report, which was indeed showing to everyone that SAP is exploitable, right? And the attackers are really exploiting these systems, right? We have a honeynet, which we are able to check if those systems are exploited, and sometimes seeing what they are doing and how they are exploited. And they are really experts on that. So we have seen people entering the system and patching the system afterwards. So means they know SAP, they know the vulnerabilities in SAP, and they know how to patch SAP, right? So they know all these things, they know. But, and that was really creating awareness and asking the SAP customers to react on that. They need to protect their system. They need to patch their systems, right? And in 2022, few months ago, in February, we released, or SAP released SAP critical note about ICM, which was called ICM MAT, critical vulnerabilities, which was affecting, I would say, 90% or more percentage of every SAP for every customer. Everyone has ICM enabled, ABAP, Java, web dispatcher. ICM, it's everywhere. And it was a vulnerability which was affecting most of the customers, right? SAP customers, not only on Apsys, right? So we are trying to help that, and we are trying to, together with SAP and together with Turnkey, to help our customers to solve those issues, and in a quick manner, right? Because as I was mentioning, that was a few numbers of the threat intel that we released last year. So in 6 months, we were able to confirm more than 400 exploitations. 100 of them were manual exploitations, so someone behind doing it, but also there was scanning of exploits, right? Automatically scan in the wild with different tools, which you can find on the internet, how to find out if there is any public Java or ABAP public SAP system available. And if you have the node or you have the scripts that you can get easily from GitHub after the SAP nodes are released, you are able to exploit with not magic knowledge. But the good thing or the bad thing is that there is knowledge around which they know how to attack SAP systems. For me, the most critical numbers here, it's the 72 hours, right? So we have seen for several, now in several cases, for Recon, for ICMAT, and for different ones, that after SAP is releasing a SAP security node, in less than 72 hours, there is already people exploiting this vulnerability. That means the time to patch, it's every time reduced, right? So it's not a topic that, yeah, okay, I have next window in 2 months, right? Yeah, that's why you need to patch a system, and if you don't patch the system, you need to have some controls to realize if there's anyone exploiting this system, because again, the patches are there, and the word everybody knows about this vulnerability, and everybody might be able to exploit that. That's a little bit of the same again. So perimeter, network, endpoint, and at the very end we have the data, right? So that's what we need to protect, right? So perimeter, network, endpoints, that's great. That's, I think most of the companies already are acting on that, but on application level, we have seen that they are not, apart from doing authorization and role and who is access controls, they are not taking care about the application. Okay, everything is fine. SAP is in my network. Nobody, it's not. Sometimes I'm getting this answer, right? So no, I have my firewall, so nobody, and my system is not connected to the internet, so nobody could do anything. But one of the statistics, it says, I think 57% of the attacks are internal attacks. We have, in our companies, we have VPNs, a lot of providers, and customers which could be happy, employees which are happy, employees which are not happy, employees which at the end of their life in our company might say, oh, I can try to exploit that system and see what happens, and try to do something nasty, right? So you need to protect that. You need to verify and confirm that your application is also secure, right? And also what it's saying here in the SAP controls, again, authorization roles can be bypassed by cyber attacks. We have the example of Recon vulnerability, ICMAT. We have the example of Turnkey, a really old vulnerability. I think Mariano and Victor, the founders of Synapsis, were the ones to show this vulnerability in Black Hat. Probably, I don't remember now if it was 2006, 2009. But there was this vulnerability there. But in 2019, there was somebody who created a script and published this script in GitHub for free. So anyone is able to use these scripts. I'm using myself to test my systems, to verify that my tool is working, obviously, but also to show my customers that, look, that's what happens if you don't have a proper access control list. And as a basis, before I joined Synapsis, only one company, the many I worked for, where I did projects for, nobody asked me about anything about access control list. Nobody, only one company. And these guys were really taking care of security. But since that, nobody asked me, right? And I've been working around. So it's not only Spain, I've been working in UK, Ireland, Finland, Sweden, Germany. So it's not a topic on one country. It's a topic of several countries. And we see that in our customers when we are assessing systems that there are customers which they have these issues. And sometimes it's difficult. For example, Turnkey Blaze, it takes a lot of time to probably create a proper access control list to mitigate this issue, right? So because then people, it's a threat and nobody wants to touch. It's the same as people who has the SAP 4.6 that they don't want to touch because probably the people who set it up, it's left the company and they don't want to touch. If something is running, don't touch it, right? But sometimes if something is running, you need to patch it still, right? And you need to ensure that nobody will break it, right? Because if not, it's gonna be even worse than if you don't patch it. But again, access control is you need to check who is accessing your system, which processes are using the gateway, which process needs to register, etc. And that's complicating the things, but you have to put countermeasures, check the logs, check security audit logs, gateway logs, message server logs to ensure that everything it's secure, or at least if something cannot be patched, at least you are aware if somebody is abusing this exploit. Because what happens if you don't fix this issue? If you don't fix the gap that we are talking about, right? So the gap between InfoSec, security, and SAP system. And you can get a data loss or breach, system outage, compliance findings. We were talking about GDPR clause regulations, SOX regulations, finance regulations, etc. Projects delayed, migrations to the cloud. We are helping a lot of customers together with Turnkey on moving to the cloud, right? So, or moving to RISE, etc. Sometimes, yeah, you say, okay, I have my project. I will need this system to be in the cloud in the next 6 months, right? But if you don't take care of security, or what it's called security by design when designing the project, if you don't take care of the security after the system is in the cloud, you need to secure. That means downtime to after you move everything to the cloud, you need to secure. Okay. And then data loss with a breach, the reputation damage. We have heard about many companies or several companies that they have the reputation, their reputation went down, even stock market went down because they have a breach and some data was taken from them, right? And I think everyone in here have their own personal mail account that from time to time you are getting this email, okay, your password have been compromised, please change the password, etc. Right? So, and that's damaging the reputation. If you have a company which it have their shop, web shop, and then you are asking your customer, hey, your data have been compromised. What have been compromised? My bank account, my credit card. So that's damaging the trust that you have, and it's really heavy to gain this trust to your customers. And we lost it really quick when we have a breach. How an apps is it's helping on those issues, on this blind spot, right? We have the Onapsis platform, right? With different products all together. We have assess, defend, control, and comply. Assess is to help you on the vulnerability management. For OS and databases, most of our customers, they, as I mentioned before, Tenable or other products, right? Which can help them on the OS level. But in SAP, those products are not able to see what's missing, right? So we are able to check misconfiguration, standard authorizations, which are assigned to many users. one example, SAPL. How many SAPLs does your system have, right? So I'm doing sometimes assessments on the system and I'm requesting, okay, I need a user with these roles. Okay, we can use mine. I have SAPL. Oh yeah, but I want to do it in production. Yeah, I have SAPL in production. I said, okay, that might be the first issue that I will find, right? So having SAPL or SAPL in communication users, right? So a lot of people are saying, no, a communication user, it's just a communication user. They cannot log in, blah, blah, blah. I was able with one of my colleagues in Germany to exploit, to tell one customer or one prospect, do that, do that, do that. In 20 minutes, we were able to create a new user with this communication SAPL user, to create a new dialogue user in the production system, in the production client in 20 minutes, because development system have SAP Start, quality system, I was able to connect directly with SAP Start as well. And then there was this communication user from quality to production, and this user have SAPL. So I was able to, using function models, create users, assign SAPL new to my user, and go to the production system with no control. And the worst part of it, and that's why we have defend, it's that nobody in the company, when we were doing that, realized that there was a new user, and this user have SAPL new and could do whatever they want. So, and that's what defend us. We, as I mentioned, we understand some fixes cannot be done. Some fixes takes time, but at the end, you need to put countermeasures like defend, reading the logs, right? And that's what it's doing, defend. Every minute it's reading critical logs, gateway log, message server log, etc., to ensure that if there is any threat, the SOC team is alert and they have a workbook how to act. And that's where also Turnkey is helping. It's working with a partner on Apsys and Turnkey. It's helping to describe this workbook, describing what the SOC team needs to do, what the SAP needs to do, SAP team, what the SAP security needs to do, right? Next part is DevSecOps. That's a really fashion word, I would say, right? So DevSecOps, it has been in the IT world for several years now, but DevSecOps, what is DevSecOps, right? So at the end, it's this paradigm of shifting the left. So everybody is checking production, it's checking for security in production, okay? So, but once in production, oh, I see this code has this vulnerability. There is no authorization check. There is a directory traversal, etc., right? And now I have to go to development again, correct these things, go to the process of the test, go to QA, all the users to test again, etc., and then move to production to solve this issue. DevSecOps, it's trying and control. We are trying to move that into the development phase and look on these stages, what is wrong? What is the security impact? What it might be impacting your business process in the production system. So moving that into the left, that will help us on ensuring there is no security findings moving to the production system, okay? And everything is controlled. So you are saving money on test, saving money on the developers because they can do they can develop more if they don't have to correct all stuff, and also your developers are learning how to secure how to develop secure, right? And that's what we are trying with our control product. And at the end, we have the compliant model, which we are delivering a set of policies, which our platform plug and play, almost plug and play, and you are assessing your system against different regulation. I mentioned that already: GDPR, SOX, ISO, ISACA, PCI, different regulations which most of the companies need to follow, and we are helping to validate if the IT general controls are in place for those systems. SAP Start, it's not enabled, segregation of duties, authorization and roles, etc., etc. So that's what an Apsys is doing. And most important, We are updating that our platform every 15 days, twice a month, more or less, and also all provided with ONAPSIS Research Lab. So I have talking at the beginning about ONAPSIS Research Lab, right? So and that's what it's feeding the platform. I'm usually comparing ONAPSIS platform with a antivirus in your laptop or your computer, right? So you can buy the antivirus today, but if you don't buy the subscription to get updated in 1 month, and 1 month, I say it's already a long time. If it's not updated, your antivirus, it's worth nothing, right? Nowadays, it's worth nothing. So that's why we keep our research lab updating our platform to ensure the latest vulnerabilities and the latest threats are being updated. And advantages of being with ONAPSIS, I'm going to use this example of ICMAT from this year, right? So we have our ONAPSIS research lab. We were doing some pen testing from some products for Facebook. And then we found out some HTTP smuggling vulnerabilities in different business critical applications. We were starting investigating. In June, we released this CVE, and that's why ONAPSIS is not only focusing in SAP, also in other critical and more vulnerabilities. And we are alerting the community about those vulnerabilities, right? So about HTTP smuggling issues, we were informing SAP as well. So we also released this threat intel report that you can download from ONAPSIS page. Also, Turnkey will be able to debrief about it because it's really interesting one, and etc. But at the end, SAP released a note in September. That's fine. But what happened in November 2021? So ONAPSIS found this vulnerability or similar vulnerabilities in ICM, right? In the ICM, which again, it's touching almost every single SAP system, right? We reported to SAP, and SAP and ONAPSIS together, we were trying to patch this vulnerability. So as soon as the patch was already in progress, and we know it's going to be released in February, we have the advantage for being the researchers who found this vulnerability to already incorporate the checks to know if my vulnerability, my system has this vulnerability, and to have countermeasures on the defense side if somebody was abusing this vulnerability already, right? So our customers were already in their product, in our product, being able to scan their systems if this vulnerability was already present. Even the patch of the kernel was released on February 8th. Our customers were already advised. We were together with our partners calling our customers saying, look, that's going to be a vulnerability released in February 8th from SAP. You will need to most probably to patch your kernel. And a lot of customers came back to us after February 8th to thank us because they were able to create the change request, which all we know there is SLA 24, 48, whatever hours you need to place your change request. And they were able to plan their patching in advance. So it was really quick to patch their systems and to avoid these 72 hours that after a patch is released to patch your system, so ensuring that nobody was abusing this vulnerability in their systems. So being said that, I don't know if there are any questions there, Andrew.
Yeah, we will move on to questions now. Thank you very much, Ernest. I wish all vulnerabilities could be fixed in 72 hours. That would be lovely. I think the key for me, I've been working in SAP security for nearly 20 years, and just to see how it's evolved, as you said, it's no longer roles, users, segregation of duties, as though that's still important. Proper cybersecurity of SAP now is that end-to-end. It includes the network, the perimeters, connections, interfaces, third-party systems, and trying to manage and identify issues, that blind spot without any form of tooling is next to impossible. So yes, such a challenge for many organizations these days. We do have a couple of questions. One is, what does the future look like for SAP with regards to security? Can we expect these types of threats and attacks to continue?
Well, I would say we have seen the trends, right? So in the last 10 years, there were a few, and in the last 6 years, 5 years, it's coming more and more, right? So the threats, we are, as I mentioned, this threat intel, it was released last year. We are planning to have this, to release this threat intel, more information in next years, or probably at the end of this year, having more information. But yes, we are seeing that. We are seeing it's increasing. The number of exploits is increasing. The number of people trying to access those systems, it's increasing. And well, it's security overall, cybersecurity, and we all know that that's increasing. And more in these years that everybody's working from home. So let's and the last year or the last 2 years that a lot of people was at home, and what can I do with my time? Let's exploit something, right? So
absolutely. It's interesting for me as well, because you can sometimes be called a doomsayer and saying it's going to be attacked, it's going to be attacked. And historically, there's been very little evidence that SAP has been under attack. It's been suspected. There's been third-party evidence to it with systems being attacked. But now, thanks to the reports like Anapsys publish, there is actual evidence and documented ways that systems are under attack these days. It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer something that might happen. These threats and attacks are real. They are being exploited. Companies are suffering, and I think that's an important change as well. Rather than just are threats increasing? Yes, but we now have capabilities. We're able to track some of them. We're able to see them, and companies are able to measure them, which is very important when it comes to funding.
Yeah, actually, the reason for this threat intel, right, was like we have been, and as well yourself, right, you have been assessing companies and checking if they were breached. If not, probably you found some that they were breached in SAP, but for security, you cannot share that, right? You cannot make that public, and that's why Anapsys create this honeynet and try to get evidence for everyone to understand, because we cannot make public what we are finding in the private companies, which obviously they are hiring us to do something in private, so we cannot make that public, right? So that's why we need to create our own way of doing things, right? So the future looks like black.
Unfortunately. Probably got time for this one. It's an important one. That blind spot between SAP security teams and the CISO group, as it were, the cyber team. Do companies, in your experience, even know about the blind spot? Do they realize how important it is and how to even go about fixing it? Is it even there? Is probably the first problem, isn't it?
Yeah, that's indeed the biggest problem, right? To understand that there is a gap, right? So InfoSec, we are doing assessments together, and we are going to companies and say we are doing assessment just because they don't know. As soon as you said, do you know? You go to Infosys, and what we are doing, it's interviews, right? So we do interviews to InfoSec, we do interviews with SAP basis, right? Sometimes we realize that, yeah, SAP basis, you ask, okay, who is taking care of knowing if there is any patch or if there is any critical node to be applied? Oh yeah, InfoSec is alerting us when there is anything. And then you go to InfoSec and you ask the same question, and they said, yes, SAP basis is in charge of that, right? And because InfoSec doesn't have the visibility, and a lot of seasons now, when they reach to us, they said, my issue is I need to secure the SAP, or I'm in charge of securing SAP or secure all the system, and I realize that I have no visibility in SAP, right? My SOC team, they don't know what's going on in SAP. They are asking the SAP base, are you patching? Yeah, I'm patching. Every 6 months I'm patching. Yeah, cool. But what about between these 6 months, right? So we 72 hours, again, 72 hours, and you already said it's a long time. Or yeah, sometimes it's too short, but you need to do it. But the blind spot is there, and we are trying to make the people aware that this blind spot is there, right? We are going to our meetings, and when you explain that, you explain, yes, there's this process in SAP, blah, 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 to patch, there's this subnode release every month, you need to check, you need to validate if your supercar package, etc. Then InfoSec is when realizing, oh, I'm not aware of what's going on there. And yeah, do you have the logs enabled? Yes, many customers have logs enabled because the auditors ask you need to enable these logs. But how many of them are checking?
Exactly.
Nobody's reading these logs. But we have big customer of us for several years that he was telling that he gained a lot with Onapsis because in the past he has to spend one resource or two resources, and he was in once a week to check the logs. First of all, it's a manual review, always failing, not willing. It might fail, let's say, or what to look for, right? So what I'm looking for authorizations, for what I'm looking for. So and with Onapsis, he was able to have a real-time or near real-time monitor of this tool the same way he has for the other products that he has, OS, databases, etc. And that's what he was looking for, right?
Absolutely. It's the ability to understand if you have a gap, critically measure it to see what you're missing, what needs to be done is absolutely key. It's that measurement for me, as you say, basis we patch every 6 months. Is that good or bad? The CISOs group typically won't know. Similar as they won't know how often any other ERP software is patched or anything else. So they have to rely on the system administrators. But if the system administrators don't necessarily have that security insight, or they're not tied into what the threat hunting team or the SOC or another group is doing within the organization, it leads to that huge blind spot. And, it doesn't necessarily solve everything. You can detect alerts, but if this SAP team still aren't going to do anything about it, you still have issues, you still have risks. But at least you have visibility of them. You can see what needs to be done, what gaps do you need to be closed. And that's critical. And just getting awareness of that in the first place can be a challenge. But, with tools, Onapsis can absolutely help make people aware, make people on the same page, and they can go on that journey together then, rather than two competing teams half implementing something they don't fully understand. It helps everyone talk that same language.
It's collaboration, totally collaboration, because as you mentioned, so there are SAP teams, I would say SAP based, it's not to blame on them if the sub-security node has been patched or not. They are not security people, they are basis people, right? So they are, when the system is in a bad performance, they are responsible for. Well, sometimes the developers as well, right? But the InfoSec team is the ones who knows about security, but they don't know about SAP. So that's collaboration. Also auditors, collaboration in a single platform to have all the information so everybody is aware of what are their tasks and what is responsible for, right? So
absolutely. Just in the interest of time, we do need to wrap up. But there's one more question that's probably worth just highlighting. You did cover it briefly during your presentation, but where we have a vulnerability such as the access control lists and we cannot fix it because you don't know the interfaces, what's talking to SAP, is there any protection we can get from these threats? So that would be sorry.
Yeah, that at the end, as I mentioned, and you mentioned access control list, it's a bad one to cover, but you need to do it. So you can put what we are saying, you need to put countermeasures, right? So you have the threat detection and to read the logs and see if somebody is exploiting those vulnerabilities, right? So by the time you are not correcting them, you need to have countermeasures. As the example of access control is, it's going to be hard. It might take 6 months, 1 year, but you need to do it. That will be my recommendation. There is other topics like, for example, having HTTP enable and HTTPS as well. And there are legacy systems that for any reason they cannot use HTTPS, right? So you need to keep HTTP. Okay, then countermeasures. And you keep that, you know that it's a vulnerability or misconfiguration that needs to be corrected, but until this legacy system it's not deprecated, you cannot solve it. But at least the countermeasure is to validate that the reading the logs for HTTM, for ICM, for gateway, etc., to ensure nobody is abusing this vulnerability that you are not able to patch. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
That will be my recommendation. It's to obviously for Turnkey or access control list, we know, and I know for many customers that they don't know how many interfaces they have, right? But and there is business processes that run once a year, and they are like, yeah, but if this stops, I don't know what's going to happen if I'm changing that. Yeah, that there is ways, right? So enabling the log and start checking and validating and controlling that. And probably you guys from Turkey are helping the customer to do all these things to help them on checking what, okay, let's review your system. Let's review what are the connections coming during the year, and let's see, right? So, but absolutely for access control list, you can wait. I mean, you can have the countermeasures to wait and to wait until this is solved. But at the end, my recommendation, you need to solve it, because it's not enough, the countermeasures, in my opinion, right? So at the end, you need to solve it. It's going to take 6 months, 1 year, 1 year and a half, but do it, and afterwards keep it, right?
Absolutely.
Because if not, it's gone.
Excellent. Thank you, Ernest. We could probably talk for hours, but sadly we are out of time for today. Maybe a follow-up session is in order. But if anybody watching this now or on the replay has any questions afterwards, would like to contact myself or Ernest, our details are there on the screen. Feel free to reach out. I say the recording of this will be available on the Turnkey Consulting website for you to watch at your leisure. But apart from that, Ernest, thank you very much for your time today. It has been a pleasure, as always. And for everyone, thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.